Hey guys, I'm Mr. Hark, and today I've got a terrifying story of two hunters who came face to face with something they thought was a gorilla, but it wasn't.
What the fuck, guys? I thought I shot a gorilla, but it looks like a Bigfoot. Wow, what the fuck? Just look at him.
It was Bigfoot. They shoot it, captured it on camera, but what happened after is a mystery in itself. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. But before we start, make sure to like and subscribe, and share this video with anyone who still doesn't believe in Bigfoot. Alright, let's begin. I don't tell this to many people, not because I'm scared of how it makes me look, though I am, but because once you hear it, you start watching the edges of rooms. You start looking over the hood of your car before you get in. You start noticing how quiet it gets right before something big moves. I used to think silence was peaceful. Now, it's a countdown. This happened in Washington, south of the mountain at Blue, not far from where the forest turns into old logging cuts and narrow roads that feel like they were carved by one stubborn guy with a bulldozer. It was autumn. Cold at night, dust dry in the day, the kind of blue sky that makes the timber look sharper. No wind, no rain, just that clear light that shows you everything and still manages to hide the only thing that matters. I'm 35 now. Back then I was 32. I run an outdoor gear company with my best friend Jake. He's 3 years older. We met when we were broke and do it yourself. Shipping orders from a storage unit, editing product videos on a laptop balanced on a Rubbermaid bin. We got lucky. We worked like hell. We got rich enough to pretend we weren't rich. We hunted because we liked it, not because we needed to fill a freezer. That's important. People hear hunters and paint a picture. Ours is different. We're tech guys who shoot straight. We went up there because we'd been hearing the same thing you probably have if you ever fell down the right rabbit holes online. There are a lot of sightings in Washington, more than anywhere else. People talk, people post. Some of it is joke bait. Some of it is beer talk. But some of it, there's a tone when someone's telling the truth and they don't like that they know it. I started hearing that tone. And then there were the missing posters on some local pages. I'm not saying those were connected. I'm saying they were in the same folder in my head, and I couldn't stop opening it. We were supposed to be on a simple weekend deer hunt with expensive gear and a dumb idea that we might catch something weird on a trail cam. That was the pitch I gave Jake over coffee. He laughed and said, "I'll bring the drone. If we film Bigfoot, I want the thumbnail to knock people out of their chairs." That was his way. Big, loud, chase the money shot. Mine is quieter. I want to understand what I'm looking at. I want to tell this, like I told the detective, straight, no edits. We drove down from Seattle on a Friday. The sky was a polished blue, airplane window blue, the kind of day you get maybe 10 times a year up there. The air smelled like dry needles and timber dust. We hit a little town with a gas station that still had paper towels stuffed into a coffee can by the windshield squeegees. The lady behind the counter saw our camo and said the deer had been feeding high and lazy because the weather hadn't broken yet. "No rain to move them," she said. "They're like us. They don't do more than they have to." Her smile dropped when she said, "Watch for dumb drivers on the roads. Folks get turned around down there." Then she added, like a reflex, "You boys got a radio?" We didn't, just phones and our usual overconfidence. We reached the forest after noon. I'll skip the gear list. It was more than enough. We checked one gate, closed, drove farther, found a spur with ruts like dried rivers, pines, firs, vine maple going red. Dust kicked up and hung behind us like we were dragging a tan ghost. We parked near a slash pile. You could see 30 yards in the timber, not more. Between the trunks, it felt like a gallery of shadows. Clear day, yes, but the woods eat light in a way that's hard to explain. You walk 10 steps in and your eyes are working harder. We hiked in, quiet as we could be. The only sound was our boots on dry duff and that high little metal tick from the stove in the back of the truck cooling down. We followed a faint game trail into a draw. There was scat, elk, old, a bed that looked used a week ago. We hung one trail cam low and one high because Jake likes angles. He sent the drone up for a quick look at the ridgeline. The video was boring, brown lines of clear-cut green islands of timber, a couple of old roads, nothing moving except one hawk riding a thermal like a lazy hand. That first night we slept in the truck under a clear sky that made the stars look aggressive. No wind, no sounds except the faraway coyote, then nothing. The kind of nothing that's so big you notice your own breath. I remember thinking how good it felt. Dry, simple, safe. The second day, everything felt a half step off. It started with a smell. I don't want to get dramatic, so I'll just tell you how it hit me. I was standing with my back to a tree, glancing across a small opening, when I smelled something like a kennel that hasn't been cleaned, plus wet dust, plus something sweet like old fruit, not rot, not death, animal and dirty. It was faint, like it had been here and just left. I looked at Jake. He was already looking at me. He said, "You smell that?" I nodded. We listened. Nothing. We went back to scanning. Later, we found a branch peeled at about my height and a half again, fresh wood showing. Bears do that, elk rub too, but this wasn't an antler rub. It looked like fingers. That's what my brain said. Fingers. I told myself I was projecting. We marked it, took a quick photo, and moved on. We saw one deer at last light. A small buck that slipped across an opening like he was late for something. We didn't shoot. It was too far, and we weren't here to fill a tag at any cost. Back at the truck, we watched the footage from the drone again and argued about nothing, like we always do when we're tired and pretending we're not. He wanted to push deeper the next day. I wanted to check the cams and then choose a new ridge. Night 2 was colder, no cloud cover, so the heat just floated off and left us with air that felt like glass. I woke up once to pee and stood behind the truck looking at a sky so clear it made me think of how small we are. I heard a single knock. Not a branch falling, not a gunshot, not a woodpecker. It sounded like someone hit a baseball bat against the tree once. Far, but not too far. I stood there with my heart doing a new thing, and I told myself it was somebody messing around at a camp. Then I told myself it was a woodpecker I didn't know about. Then I told myself to get back in the truck because there was nothing to do with that information at 2 in the morning. We were up before dawn the next day. I remember the windshield was fogged from the inside and I wiped it with my sleeve and left a smear that kept catching the sunlight all morning. We hiked out to the cams. The light was that clean, low angle that turns dust into tiny floating lights. Our boot steps sounded too loud. Dry pine needles, little sticks snapping. No wind. You could hear a squirrel from 50 yards. We reached the first camera. A couple of deer at night. A raccoon at 4 in the morning. Nothing weird. The second camera was deeper in, down a small slope by a trickle of a creek that would be a torrent after the first real storm. Now it was just a string of shallow pools, glass smooth, with yellow leaves stuck to the surface. We didn't see prints. The ground was too hard. The second camera had 3 clips of nothing, like something big had triggered it but never showed its body. Leaves in the foreground shook. Then nothing. I told myself it was wind, but there was no wind. Jake shrugged. "Could be a cow elk out of frame," he said. "Could be you breathing on it last night." He grinned so I'd know he was kidding. I didn't laugh because I'd been careful. We climbed back out and hit a skid road that climbed to a small bench. On the bench there was a slash pile, old and settled, with blackberry vines trying to claim it. The sun was up enough to get warm on your neck when you stepped into the open. We stood there and talked about where to watch the rest of the morning. That's when I saw it. At first I thought it was a stump. That's what everybody says, and that's what I said in my head. Then it moved, just a little, and I thought bear. The way the shoulders rolled, the way the head didn't pop up like a person's. But then it kept moving, and it moved like something heavy in the hips and long in the arms. It stepped out of a strip of shade and the sun hit the hair. Dark, not black like a new tire. Dark like tree bark when it's dry. I whispered bear. Jake said no. Then, and I know how this sounds, my brain said gorilla. Maybe it's all the pictures we've all seen, or maybe it's how the chest looked, wide and thick, like a wall. The arms were longer than they should have been, not cartoon long. Just long enough that when it turned its shoulders, the hands were below mid-thigh. That's the detail that still wakes me up. The proportion. We were frozen. It wasn't far, 50 yards. 60 max. It stopped. It turned its head toward us. The face was dark. I can't give you more than that. I didn't see sclera or canines or any of the details people on the internet like to argue about. I saw a flat plane of dark with a suggestion of a brow, and I felt the kind of focus you feel when something much stronger than you is deciding something about you. It wasn't curious. It wasn't afraid. It was like a guy stepping into a bar fight, not to start one, but not to back away either. It took one step forward, and I swear the air changed. Not the weather. The pressure in my chest. I heard my heartbeat. Then it moved. Quick. Not sprinting, not a cartoon charge. A straight line at us like a coach walking through a crowd who knows everyone will step aside. I didn't think. That's not me making an excuse. That's the truth. I brought the rifle up. I said something that wasn't words. Jake did the same. I remember the safety click with too much clarity. It took another step. There was no tree between us big enough to matter. I shot. I expected a roar or a scream or some movie sound. What I heard was a big person taking a hit and losing their breath for a second. A deep huff and a stagger. It turned halfway, like it was going to cut right, and Jake fired. It collapsed backward. The ground shook under my feet the way it does when a big animal hits it. Dust puffed. Then the dust settled and there was no movement. We stood with our rifles at our shoulders for a long time. I don't know how long. Long enough for my arms to get tired. Long enough to feel the blood leave my face and then come back. When I finally lowered mine, I realized I was shaking so hard I couldn't trust my hands. We argued then. Not with words you'd want your mother to hear. We said what the hell a lot. We said gorilla again because nothing else would land. We said what if that was a guy in a suit? Then we shut up because saying it out loud made it too big. I didn't want to step in. Jake didn't either. We circled, slow, watching, keeping our distance. It was on its back, arms at weird angles like it had been trying to twist when it fell. The chest rose once. I swear it did. One shallow rise and fall. Then nothing. The mouth, if that's the right word, was half open. The teeth didn't look like anything special. Not fangs, big. Human big plus a little. The nose wasn't a snout. The hair was thick and coarse, not long like a horsetail, more like guard hair on a big dog, with a layer under it that looked softer. There was a smell, but not what I'd expected. Musky, yes. Like an animal that sleeps in the same spot a lot. But not rot, not death. Not yet. I didn't want to touch it. My brain was swinging between you just killed a person, and you just killed something that shouldn't exist. Both thoughts made my legs feel weak. Jake said, we need to film it. I said, don't post this. He said, we have to film it. He took out his phone. 10 seconds.
What the fuck, guys? I thought I shot a gorilla, but it looks like a Bigfoot. Wow, what the fuck? Just look at him.
That's all we have. 10 seconds of a thing on its back with its arms out and its chest still enough that you can argue about whether it moved. You can see 1 foot. The sole is pale and broad. Not a boot, not a bear paw, a foot. We ended the clip because we were arguing again and we didn't want that on the audio. I said we needed to call someone. Who do you even call? He said. We need proof in case someone steals it. He wanted to cut a lock of hair. I said no. Then I said yes. He pulled a glove, and when he leaned in, he caught a cluster of hair on a broken limb, and it came away stuck to the glove. He held it like a person holds a spider web, like he didn't want to feel it on his skin. We put it in a zip bag. I told him to mark the GPS. He already had. We backed out. We didn't run. We walked the way you walk when your body wants to sprint, but your head is saying, if it's not dead, running will make it worse. At the truck, I tried my phone. No service. Of course. We drove until we had bars. I called the county. Then the state. I didn't say Bigfoot. I said we had shot a large animal we couldn't identify, and we needed an officer out there. The dispatcher asked if anyone was hurt. I said no. She asked if it could be a person. I said I didn't know. That was the only honest answer. She told us to stay with the truck and not go back in. That last part I didn't follow. We drove back to the spot and waited at the spur so they could find us. Then we didn't wait. I couldn't sit there. The thought of a cougar or a bear or some guys with a sense of humor finding it before the authorities, it made me nauseous. We went back in, slow, rifles down but ready, palms sweating enough that the grips felt slick. We reached the bench. The dust was still hanging low in little swirls where we'd walked through. The sun had climbed just enough to flatten everything. The body wasn't there. There were drag marks. That's what you want me to say, and that's what I saw. Something had moved through the dry needles and left 2 broad lines with scuffs in between. They led toward the draw and the shallow creek. There was no blood like on TV. It was a faint, dust-stained trail, like something heavy had been slid by people who knew what they were doing. I thought people first, not animals. The lines were too clean. The angle was too efficient. It looked like a decision had been made. We followed the marks to the creek. They stopped at the water. The pools were still. A couple of leaves drifted because a breeze had finally started, the light kind that moves just the surface. I stared at the tracks and felt my chest go cold. Jake crouched and didn't say anything. He pointed at the far bank. There were scuffs there too, but faint. The kind of faint that makes you doubt your eyes, so you look away and look back to see if your brain will agree with you the second time. The second time is worse, because you realize you aren't wrong. The officers found us crouched over nothing. A county deputy with a square head and the kind of patience you learn from too many dumb calls. A wildlife officer who looked like he could carry both of us on his shoulders. They asked us to take them to where it happened. We did. We told the story the same way I'm telling you now, minus the panic in our voices. They listened. They didn't laugh. They didn't say Bigfoot. They gave each other the kind of glance people give when they're adding up lines in a report. They took our rifles. Routine, they said. We didn't argue. They looked at the glove with the hair. They bagged it. They told us we had done the right thing by calling. I believed them for about 10 minutes. Word got out anyway. Not from us. We kept it tight. We didn't upload the clip. We didn't tell anyone besides the authorities. But the woods talk. A beat-up white pickup rolled down the spur while the officers were still with us. Two guys with logging crew beards leaned out and asked if we were the ones who shot a, what do you call it? The deputy told them to keep moving. They did, slow, eyes on us the whole time. The wildlife officer followed their truck on foot for a few steps and stared at the bed, like he expected to see something in it. They taped off the area. They told us to go back to town and wait. They'd be in touch. We left. We drove to a motel with doors that opened straight to the parking lot. We didn't take showers. We sat on the beds with our boots on and stared at the same 10-second clip until the battery died. In the clip, if you pause it just right, you can see the chest maybe lift, or maybe it's a trick of the camera. If you want it to move, it moves. If you don't, it doesn't. That's the kind of proof we had. The kind that proves whatever you brought to it. That night, clear again, stars again. The parking lot light made a cone on the hood of our truck. I heard a chirp from the alarm, not the honk. The warning chirp like something touched it. I was up fast. I opened the door, looked out, no one. The air was so still I could hear the soda machine by the office humming. I stood there too long, waiting for something I told myself I didn't believe in. The next morning, the wildlife officer called. He said they had found disturbance, which is a word that means nothing when you need it to mean everything. He said there would be a test on the hair. He didn't say where or who or when. He asked again if we had posted anything online. We said no. He said good. He said stay reachable. Then he hung up. We tried to work. We tried to answer emails and talk to our staff like we weren't outside our bodies. Then a message popped into Jake's group chat with some industry people. It was a still frame of our clip, cropped tight on the foot. "Is this you guys?" someone wrote. My heart fell through the floor. We hadn't sent it to him. Jake swallowed. "I texted a still to one person," he said, "just to get a read. I told him not to share." He said it like a kid who knows he messed up and is already pulling away from the version of himself who did it. By noon, the still was everywhere it likes to be when something is real enough to hurt people and fake enough to protect them. Private chats, small forums, then bigger ones. We weren't named. Not at first. People were drawing circles on the photo like TV detectives. "It's a rubber suit," one said. "It's a bear's foot," another said. "It's a hoax to save their company," someone wrote, which didn't even make sense but made enough that it landed. The official side got stranger. 2 days later, the wildlife officer called again, but now he sounded measured in a different way. He said the hair came back as unknown mammal with contamination. He said that happens. He said chain of custody is tricky when civilians collect samples. He said the deputy would like another conversation to clarify our timeline, just to make sure we didn't miss anything, he said, which is the kind of sentence that makes your mouth go dry. We went back to the county building. Different room. The detective this time. He asked if we could have staged it. His tone wasn't accusing. It was like a doctor asking about your diet before he says you need surgery. He asked if we had any reason to lie. He asked if we had any reason to shoot a person. He asked if anyone had contacted us. That's when we told him about the white pickup and about a new thing. Our trail cams had been opened when we went to collect them. Not smashed, just opened. The SD cards were gone. We had only the clips we pulled with the app the first day. He wrote that down and didn't look surprised. Could be kids, he said. Could be someone who thinks they're helping. He didn't say who he thought they were helping. I didn't sleep, not for days. When I did, I dreamed of the way the thing's arms lay, wrong. I dreamed that I would walk into my kitchen and it would be sitting at the table, calm, like it was waiting to finish a conversation I didn't know we were having. I started checking the backyard before I let the dog out. I started standing near windows without turning the light on so I could see out but no one could see in. That's not a thing a healthy mind does. Jake and I fought. He wanted to post the clip and blast the story and hire a lawyer and make it a media circus we could control. If we put it out first, they can't say we're hiding, he said. We'll tell it clean. We'll own our mistake if it was a mistake. What mistake, I said. Which one are we owning? We were both right and both wrong. We didn't post it. He said I was letting fear run the show. I said he was letting attention run it. We stopped being on the same side for a while. A week in, a guy from a podcast called, not a small one. He'd heard through a chain of people that starts with a friend and ends with, "Don't repeat this." He said he could protect our names. He said this was exactly the kind of story his listeners live for. He said the word platform like it was a bank account. I told him no. Jake wanted to say yes. I hung up before we had to agree. The strangest part wasn't the internet or the tests or the official words, it was the private conversations. A logger at the gas station who wouldn't give his name told us he had seen something. Cross a road at night the year before and he'd driven away so fast he missed a turn he'd been taking since high school. A woman who runs a small cafe told us her dog wouldn't go near the back trash bins for a week in October last year, and she never figured out why. A bow hunter we met on a trail said he'd heard steps matching his on a ridge 2 years ago. He was proud when he told it, then ashamed, like he was telling us about crying. The human brain is a pattern machine. It will feed you shapes until you starve to death on them. I know that. I still started seeing the pattern. Another official call came. The hair test, now sent to a different lab, came back deer with possible human handling. That means nothing. That means everything. It means we took fur from a branch that an elk brushed and then I touched it and now I'm Bigfoot. Or it means someone wants me to feel stupid. It worked, if that was the plan. There's one more thing, and maybe it's the hardest to explain. A couple of weeks after, I went back alone. Jake said I shouldn't. He was right. I told him I just wanted to see the place in daylight with a calmer head. The sky was the same hard blue, the same dry smell in the pines. I walked in slowly, every sound in my body loud. I stood on that bench again and looked at the slash pile and the line of trees where it had stepped out. I waited. Nothing happened. That should have been a relief, and it wasn't. It was worse because I realized I wasn't there to see it again. I was there to apologize. I said it out loud, which sounds dumb until you try it. I said I was sorry for shooting before I understood what I was shooting at. I said I didn't know what else I could have done and that I hated that truth. I said I had been scared. I said I might be a coward. And then, because I couldn't stop myself, I said, if you're there. That's the part I never tell, because it makes me sound like I think I know anything. I don't. There was a knock. One. Not close, not far. A single, clean hit. I stood there with tears in my eyes before I even knew I was crying. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I walked out slow, the same speed we'd walked in that day. My knees felt weak in the exact same way. If you want this to be about proof, I can't help you. I have 10 seconds of video that will make you argue with your friends and hate yourself for how badly you want to be convinced. I have a memory of something that looked like a gorilla until it didn't. I have the sound of the safety coming off and the feeling of the trigger breaking and the weight of a choice that doesn't get lighter. I have a glove in an evidence bag somewhere that probably says more about me than about what we saw. People ask why we didn't chase it when it was dragged. Because we aren't stupid. Because men disappear in the woods when they go looking for what took something from them. because everything in my body said enough. That's the part that doesn't fit the internet version. The internet wants you to be a hero or a liar. I was just a guy who did what he thought would keep him alive for another minute. Jake and I still work together. We made it through, mostly. Sometimes we don't talk for a day because a hunting video blows up online and it puts us both back there and neither of us wants to be the first to say it. Sometimes we do talk and we end up retelling the same 5 seconds to see if the story changed. It doesn't. The edges blur if you push them too hard, but the center stays. The step, the proportion, the way it looked at us like we were noise. I don't know what's out there. I don't say Bigfoot because that word belongs to t-shirts and bumper stickers in towns that sell wooden cutouts on the highway. Whatever we saw wasn't a joke. It wasn't a guy in a suit unless that guy is heavier than any offensive lineman and quiet as a cat and okay with dying on a dry bench in the middle of a Saturday. It wasn't a bear. If you've ever been close to a bear, you know they have a way of moving that belongs to bears. This didn't. You want a neat ending. I want one too. Here's what I have. I still hunt. Not there. Not in that unit. I take more radios now. I tell people exactly where I'm going. I have never pulled a trigger without saying I see it out loud to myself first, which probably sounds weird, but it puts me in my body. It makes me slow down. At night, when my wife falls asleep and the house goes quiet, that's when it shows up. Not the thing, the moment. The way the sun laid across the needles. The sound of dry dust lifting when something heavy falls. The feeling that somewhere just out of sight, something big is listening and deciding if you're worth the trouble. The way the woods held their breath and then exhaled when it was over. And one more thing, the knock in the trees 2 weeks later. Clean, lonely, like a question you can't answer without starting another one. If you came here for proof, I'm sorry. If you came here for a story that lets you sleep with the light on, I'm sorry for that too. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you how it is when you do a thing you can't undo, and the world doesn't change to match it. It just keeps being the world, blue sky and dry needles, and the smell of dust and old sap. Your mind changes. Your hands remember. You start checking the edges of rooms. There's a reason people who know don't talk. Not because they're scared of being called crazy, though that's part of it. Because when you tell it, it moves from you to whoever's listening. And now they have to live in the world knowing the edges are closer than they look. I don't want to do that to people, but I also can't carry it alone anymore. So here it is, clean as I can make it. We went looking for deer on a clear, cold weekend, and we found something we used the wrong word for because we didn't have the right one. It charged. We shot. We filmed 10 seconds of the worst moment in our lives. When we came back, it was gone. Something or someone took it. The forest went back to being quiet like nothing had happened. That's the part that messes with me most, not the sight of it. The quiet after. Like the woods had a mouth and we were inside it. I can live with not knowing what we saw. I can't live with what we did. Not yet, not fully. Some days I think it was self-defense. Some days I think we killed a mystery because we couldn't stand to be afraid for one more second. Both are true depending on which minute I'm in. People ask what I'd do if I could go back. I'd tell them the truth. I'd freeze again. I'd say bear in my head again. I'd let it take one more step. I'd beg myself to wait one more heartbeat. I don't know if I would. That's the confession. I don't know. Fear is a fast thing. Regret is slow and steady. It sits with you at breakfast. It follows you to the truck. It climbs in the bed without asking. The last thing I'll give you is the last thing I have. A sound, not a picture. We were standing there after it fell, not breathing, the dust hanging in the light. I swear I heard one long breath come out of it. Not a death rattle. Not drama, just a breath. The kind you make when you lie back on the floor after moving a couch. That detail doesn't help the story. It doesn't make me look good or bad. It's just what I remember. When I hear it in my head, which I do all the time, I don't hear a monster. I hear somebody tired. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe that's the point. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe the point is that the world is bigger than we're comfortable with, and sometimes it lets you see the seam where it stretches. And sometimes you put a hole in it because you're small and scared, and you want the seam to go away. It doesn't. It just gets quieter. And you start watching the edges of rooms.
What the fuck, guys? I thought I shot a gorilla, but it looks like a Bigfoot. Wow, what the fuck? Just look at him.